Heavyweight contender Anthony Joshua will be ready to fight for the British title by summer. And he'll be ready to take on the likes of Tyson Fury and Derek Chisora by the end of the year. At least according to his promoter Eddie Hearn. Now, as usual, I'll leave a link to the article in the description below so you can go read it for yourselves. But in this particular article, both Anthony Joshua and his promoter Eddie Hearn are saying they'll probably be ready for a British title fight around the summer. Now, currently, I believe the British title is vacant. So, it is plausible that Anthony Joshua could fight for a British title because there isn't that much out there. I think there's Sam Sexton, Larry Olubamiwo. There's not that many fighters at the moment on the British scene. Derek Chisora is now European champion. David Price has gone off to Germany. So at the moment on the British scene, and obviously Tyson Fury is up there in the world ranking. So at the moment on the British scene, it's pretty weak for the time being. The only guy coming up at the moment, there's a couple heavyweights at the very, very early stages. Huey Fury possibly. But I haven't heard any news about him maneuvering himself into contention for the British title. There's Ian Lewison out there. So there's a couple guys, but relatively speaking, there's no major force on the British scene at the moment. So it's conceivable that Anthony Joshua could fight for a British title in the summer. But as far as him being ready for Tyson Fury and Derek Chisora by the end of the year, I'm not so sure about that. I've had quite a few conversations about Anthony Joshua on Facebook. I'd like to shout out to everyone on Facebook, by the way. If you ain't a member of my Facebook boxing group, Hatman Boxing, then you need to be a member because that group is growing rapidly. I think there's maybe approaching 700 members now and growing very rapidly. So make sure you join my Facebook boxing group. But I've had numerous conversations with people on there about how quick or slow they should move Anthony Joshua. And quite a few people believe that Joshua could beat Derek Chisora and Tyson Fury right now. And I agree and I disagree at the same time. Where I agree is I agree that Anthony Joshua probably has the physical ability to beat Chisora and Fury right now. I think he probably does. But boxing is as much mental as it is physical. Does he have it mentally at the moment to beat Derek Chisora and Tyson Fury? These are two very experienced guys. They've been around world-class training camps several times. You know, Derek Chisora has been in the ring with some of the best heavyweights on the planet. So he's a very experienced guy, very ring-hardened and mentally tough. Both guys are mentally tough. So is Anthony Joshua ready? You know, both guys, Chisora and Fury, have both been 12 rounds on several occasions. Anthony Joshua hasn't. So is he really ready mentally? Because I remember Mike Tyson once said about his boxing career, he said that he could have beaten Trevor Berbick. He had the ability to beat Trevor Berbick after his maybe 4th or 5th fight. He had the ability to beat Berbick. But he said he didn't have the confidence to do it. It's about confidence. If you don't have the confidence, you can have all the ability in the world, but you ain't going to perform when you get in the ring if you don't have the confidence. And against the level of opposition that Anthony Joshua has been fighting, especially given the fact he's under such close scrutiny by the British public and the boxing public in general, he seemed a bit tense in a couple of his fights. Because he's only had, what, 3 or 4 fights now. He seemed a little bit tense in a couple of those fights. And it's better to be tense against these lower level opponents that he's fighting at the moment because they won't make you pay for it. Whereas people like Tyson Fury and Derek Chisora, if you go in there and you're tense and you're not 100%, they're going to take advantage of it and they're going to make you pay. So the whole idea of putting someone like Joshua in with these lower level opponents is not to really test him at this stage, but just to get him comfortable in the situation that he's in with the smaller gloves in the professional ring in front of all the crowds, expecting a lot from him, calling him the next Lennox Lewis and the next savior of the heavyweight division. We've seen so many guys not be able to handle the pressure for various different reasons, or the expectation. And we don't want to see that happen to Anthony Joshua. So I would not want him to go anywhere near a Derek Chisora or Tyson Fury. Definitely not this year, and probably not for the majority of the next year. When you've got a talent as potentially good as Anthony Joshua, there's no rush. He's only about 23 years old. There's no rush. You got all the time in the world. And in fact, rushing him would probably be, it's an unnecessary gamble. And if it backfires, it could backfire monumentally. Whereas if you just take your time, take it easy, you can progress him more steadily and you'll get better results. You know, Lennox Lewis was a guy who was progressed very quickly in his career, but Lennox Lewis had an extensive amateur background, right? Lewis had close to 100 fights, maybe just over 100 fights. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't checked Lennox Lewis's amateur record for a while, but I believe it was roughly around 100 fights Lennox Lewis had in the amateurs. Anthony Joshua has had nowhere near that amount of amateur fights. Lewis participated in 2 Olympics when he was an amateur, whereas Anthony Joshua has been to 1 Olympics and, you know, he struggled in a couple of those fights. So yes, Lewis was moved fast as a professional, but that's because he was a vastly experienced amateur and Anthony Joshua ain't. So there's no rush for Anthony Joshua as far as I'm concerned. Move him slowly, take it easy, get him to the stage where he's very comfortable and relaxed fighting this fairly low level of opposition. And then once he's 100% relaxed, then step him up. All right? Because I'm still concerned that he's a bit tense and he's not 100% relaxed. And you want to get the nerves out at this stage. You know, you want to be free of nerves against the low level of opposition. You don't want to start having nerves and get in there with a Derek Chisora or a Tyson Fury or anyone else on, you know, European or world level. So that's just my two cents on it. Go read the article for yourself, see what you think. Anthony Joshua does speak about the situation himself, talks about possibly fighting for the British title, and Eddie Hearn has said in several interviews that he likes to move his fighters quickly. That's what he said in several interviews recently in terms of maneuvering his fighters into contention for a world title, especially. He likes to move them quickly. He doesn't really like to, you know, he doesn't like to push their career. He doesn't like to nurture them for too long. He likes to put them into competitive fights quite quickly. That's what he says his agenda is. Now, I'm not sure how much of that is down to Eddie Hearn's take on the game, you know, whether that's just of his own design or whether that's pressure from Sky Sports. You know, maybe that's pressure from Sky Sports to put boxers into competitive fights to please the public. I'm not sure. But either way, I'm not really 100% certain if it's going to be the best situation for Anthony Joshua. I'd prefer him to be moved a little bit slower. He's got all the time in the world. There's no rush. Vladimir Klitschko wasn't really rushed in his career, and even he still came unstuck against Ross Purity because he wasn't ready for that level of opposition at that particular time. So the heavyweight landscape is perilous. When you're in there with big men, big experienced men, you know, a big, powerful, strong young kid like Anthony Joshua can easily come unstuck against a person that you least suspect. So on top of that, the funny thing is, Joshua has sparred with both Chisora a lot. He sparred with Chisora a lot in the amateurs because Chisora was a member of the same amateur gym as Anthony Joshua, and they've actually sparred a lot. And Joshua also sparred with Tyson Fury, and Tyson Fury says, he came out in an interview with Steve Bunce, he said that Anthony Joshua beat him up in sparring. But this was back when Tyson Fury wasn't in good condition. And since then, he's got in much better condition and he's pretty much a different fighter now. But, you know, maybe that's where Joshua and possibly Eddie Hearn get their confidence in terms of mentioning those two names, because of the fact that he's got history sparring with those guys and We know that he got the better of Fury because Fury admitted it, but we don't know what went on with the, with him sparring Derek Chisora. Who knows? But yeah, man, drop your comments below. What do you feel about the whole situation with Joshua? Do you feel different than me? Do you think he is ready? Do you think he will be ready to step in there with Chisora and Fury by the end of the year and fight for the British title in the summer? As I said, I think he's got the physical ability to beat them. I'm just not sure if he's there mentally yet. I'm not sure if he's there mentally, but we'll have to wait and see. It could well happen at the end of the year, So drop your comments below. Let me know how you feel. This is Hatman. I'm out.